So hello everybody, I had this very interesting subject to share with you and relating it with the world of finance and investing, how we can relate understanding commerce with also understanding finance, compound interest, the most powerful force in the entire universe. So, the last video I uploaded was very long. I'm gonna try to make something short and more like practical, for people who want to succeed in life and want to find somebody that's being generous and giving valuable information. And that's what I'm trying to do today and what I will do today, very probably. So I was reading about ancient China history, and many thousands of years ago, basically China was divided between four main social classes in a time where the stock market didn't exist, where access to investments wasn't so easy as today. And you have four main classes. You had the Shi, which were the government and the scholars, Confucius, all the people that Confucius educated. Then you have the Nong, which were, if I'm not wrong, the farmers. Yes. Then you have the Gong class, okay, which were artisans, people that work with their own hands, carpenters, whatever. And then very important, you have the Shang, which were people that had a focus in commerce, in buying and selling goods, in transporting goods by sea or by many routes, many famous routes. And the Shi, for example, which were the scholars, people that like to live from a salary and from seducing the richest class, and basically they didn't invest a lot and they weren't sometimes exactly capitalists, but as we know they were in many cases communist or socialist, very fucked up mentalities. The Shi like to criticize the Shang, because the people in commerce, because they were capable of having outrageous wages, outrageous income compared with the other classes. Okay, and as happens today, this was partly as a result of the poor understanding that most people have around compound interest and investing. We could say that nowadays, thousands of years later, the farmers and the artisans are 80% of human population. And then the people in finance, in some way, they might be the Shang. However, the important thing to understand is that because today we have the stock market, the game is a little bit different, and you can buy and sell bigger amounts of goods and valuable things, which in this case will be stocks and ownership in businesses. But the interesting thing I wanted to do today is to help you to use commerce to understand why people in finance can make so much income in the long term. And the Shang, the people in commerce, if we simplify so you can understand it, is simply people that buy something at $1 or one shekel or one I don't know, whatever, 1 peso, whatever unit. Okay, let's say it's a strong currency. So they buy it at $1 or one gold coin, something that on the market to the distributors, to the salespeople, sells at 2, because they potentially can sell it to customers for free, dollars or gold coins, because it has some value, or silver coins. Perhaps one gold coin is a lot. So the salespeople can potentially sell it at 3 or maybe 4 or 5 if they are very successful at selling and giving extra value and communicating the value something has. Okay, so basically the game of commerce is this: buying something for 1, the distributor then goes and sells it for 2, and then the salesman is buying it for 2 or for 2.50 because he can go and sell it for free or more. Okay, and from 1 to 2, you have a 100% return per cycle. Every time I go to the origin of the goods, the factory, the country where they fabricated, and I buy it, and then I sell it for 2, that's 100% return. Let's say in the middle, you had expenses like travel costs, shipping the product, security, if the route was very dangerous, taxes. After all expenses, perhaps that's not an 100% return. It's going to be a 50% return or a 20% return. Okay? And in the world of finance, if somebody can get 50% return a year, they are in the path of becoming the next Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett did an average of 28% a year. The other day, I saw the fund of a younger guy that's doing an average 29-30% a year. And he already has more than $100 billion, $120 billion under management because of that. But the important thing in commerce to understand is that you can achieve those 50% returns, buying for one, selling for two, so they sell for free to the final consumer. But you can do faster cycles, meaning that I can start with 10,000 units or with less. You can start from very humble beginnings, and that's the power of the Shang. They could start from very humble beginnings and rise as very wealthy people at the end after many cycles. So you start with 10,000 units, and then you travel and you deliver, you get your money, and when you go back to the origin, perhaps you can buy 50% more. You buy 15,000, and then you repeat the cycle. You go with 15,000, and you sell, and you come back, and you can buy 22,500, right? And the thing with commerce that made the Shang so powerful in ancient China was the fact that they could make many cycles per year. Perhaps they were capable to make a trade every month or every 2 months if the sales point was very far away, right? Or perhaps 8 months if they wanted to buy some rare goods in a far and distant nation, going by ship, okay? And the thing is that the Shang were able to make 40% returns or more or less very fastly. They could make many cycles a year. And so basically you can achieve wealth in 10 years instead of having to wait 60 years like Warren Buffett did, right? Because in 10 years, you do 6 cycles a year, you have 60 cycles. Maybe Warren Buffett had 60 cycles, but along 6 years. And why everyone is not doing like the Shang? Well, the answer to that, which is very important, is because they use physical goods. You have to store, transport, and in some point you have so many physical goods that it becomes basically very difficult, or you stop wanting to solve the problem of moving all the goods. So the Shang were very powerful to start from very humble beginnings or with little capital or with a low amount of goods and then grow that amount to a big capital. So they went from 10,000 to 12,300 if they did 23% after a cycle. And they keep growing, and perhaps at 60,000 the stock already became unmanageable. Perhaps you couldn't put that amount of goods inside a few ships, right, that you could sail away. So in those points where when these guys were very rich, they had accumulated wealth. And let's say that those 60,000 units are worth 20 million, to put a number, right? So then when people achieve this level of wealth is when they move their capital into the hands of finance people that has to solve the problem of where do I place $20 million, okay? And the answer to that isn't always goods or commercial transaction. The answer will be in the stock market nowadays, because it has grown so much and it has so many companies with big market caps and so on. So then finance people, perhaps they cannot do 30% 6 times in a year, but they try to do 30% a year or 40% a year, or if a stock is going to double in price across many years or many months, they try to do that return, but in huge amounts of money. 20 million, 20 billion. As I told you, this guy I studied that was a follower of Warren Buffett, he invested for decades, and he already has more than $120 billion under management, and he has done in average 29%. Okay, but why he has so much money under management? If the Shang, the commerce people, will make more money? And the answer is because the Shang people, the commerce people, they have a limit. They cannot buy more than a certain amount. So that's the very interesting about this, related with ancient China and their history. In the times where there wasn't stock markets, where people couldn't invest in the stock markets, the Shang were capable of growing a lot. And yeah, and that's basically it. That's basically the explanation. It's very important to understand compound interest. Something I can buy for one, because then I can sell it for two, because somebody potentially can go and sell it for free. That's a principle in commerce with physical goods, in commercial goods. But then in finance, the game is different. And perhaps you can buy something for one that in 2 years is going to multiply by 4. Yeah, but it's not because it's a commercial product, but because it's a company, a stock, a publicly traded business that's going to go 4x. So that's basically it. And it's very interesting, right? The 4 classes, the Shi, government and academics, the Nong, which were the farmers, then the Gong, which were the artisans, if I didn't mix them, and then the Shang, very criticized one, the people in commerce, the people in, focused in buying something for one that then I can sell for 2 or 3, because somebody then in the market can sell it for 4 or 5, or who knows. Sometimes you can represent a product that's so valuable, and then the salesman can sell it for 2,000, 3,000, right? So a small addition I forgot to make is that the Shi weren't only scholars like myself, or intellectual writers, or people in government. The Shi also were the warrior class in some way. There was a bigger class than what I said. Okay, let's honor the truth and all of that and be precise. But if you want to learn more about it, you should go and read articles about it. I don't want to make this video too long. So you have the Shi, the Nong, the Gong, and the Shang. And in some way, discrimination in those times, and racism, if you want to call it that way, happened in this way. They put labels on you. So if you were a Nong, a farmer, and you weren't very smart, or you didn't prove to be very literate and know how to write and read properly, probably if you went to the Confucius Academy or other academies asking to become a Shi, probably they will say to you that you don't belong there, that you are just a Nong, which in other words mean go grab a shovel or whatever they used to farm and go and make a living farming and being poor and all of that, right? And of course, the Nong were in many cases less rich than the Shang and the Shi, of course. But in those times, that was the way discrimination worked, of course, and in many other ways. I don't know if they felt rejection towards foreigners or xenophobia, but I didn't study that area. But probably they had those feelings. Okay, but if it was about social classes, probably it was hard for you to become a Shi if you didn't have a certain background, okay? Or if you weren't taught at home how to read, write, and nowadays, and this is the message of the video, everybody everybody, no matter if you are in the farmer class or working class, whatever classes we have today, if you take the decision of want to become a Shi, or even smarter than that and more profitable than that, become a Shang, you can't take that decision. If you go to a school and you really want to pay the tuition fees, or it's a school with a budget to receive many people for free, probably you're going to apply to that school, and it doesn't matter your background. They're going to try to accept you, and they're going to try to teach you how to read, how to understand, how to debate, many skills you need to be part of that environment, right? To become sort of a modern Shi, okay? But that's basically the message. Nowadays, everybody can jump from different classes, but there's also the reality that many people never have the courage or the decision or the help from other people, because sometimes you also need some help to become more educated, and so their destiny is to fall into a label, sadly nowadays, which is becoming a nong or a gong if you are more like an artisan and some sort of those occupations where people that doesn't have enormous levels of education or rhetoric or reading skills, they can succeed and even become quite rich. Okay. But yeah, that's basically the thing I wanted to add. The she encapsulates even more professions than the ones I mentioned. That's it. That's all for today. And I think this was brilliant and very interesting because it's related with ancient China and all of that. I don't know how to write Chinese symbols, but every class had his own Chinese symbol. And of course, these guys right here were extremely discriminated, right? Because, of course, they were different and people put a label on them. And we still have that today. And then the she nowadays is the same, but like back in those days, you have very communist oriented thinkers, which of course didn't like people who were good at taking good decisions and freeing themselves by thinking differently, by focusing in the right things instead of being a nong or a gong and accepting their destiny, right? At the end, we have that free will. We can decide to change. That's the last message of this video. You can decide to be a Shang, and if you are not a Shang, you can be a finance guy. You can be whatever you want, right? And that's the final message I wanted to give. And a little bit I'm a she in that sense because I like knowledge so much, but that's the final thing to say. So thank you for watching. Remember to leave a like, subscribe, all of that, and have a good week. Goodbye.